Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me two legends, Paul Nader, Brian Schroller. What a privilege to have you with us. Many people that are going to be watching this video will know something of how the Lord used SummitTrek 5 years ago to come from halfway around the world to South Africa to sow something not only into our nation, but I believe into the nations of the world. And we're not going to go into that story today. Today, what I want to do is I want to yank back the curtains and look at the behind the scenes that has got us to this point. So we're here, 2024. We're gathered at the Connected Leaders Collab. We got hundreds of leaders from around the world and around South Africa gathering together in this expression that we now call Business Forum. So let's open it up. How did we get to this point? What would you like to share?
I had a long-term investment banking career. And I was on a trajectory, and they had a path, and I was within a year becoming chief investment officer of a large bank, and there was a lot of title and money and great parking spaces and all those things. And God started to break my heart for the people that I was on the phone with. So I had headphones on, sitting in front of 6 screens, managing a big pile of money from 6 or 7 in the morning till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And I loved what I did, and apparently did it really well. And as my heart started to get broken for the men and women on the other end of the phone, my desire to do that work started to shift.
Wow.
And I realized that the voice on the end of the phone is someone that if I were open and available to our God, magical things could happen in conversation that would change the trajectories of people's lives. And that became so much more invigorating and important to me that when a friend came to me and said, would you consider leaving managing this large pile of money and come manage my company that was 1,000th the size of what I was managing? So I went into a small company and had an incubator for 2 years where I was able to create culture, and I was able to create leadership development and governance and all the things that are now Summit, but the early stages of that. So I had a 2-year runway of doing that work. And when things started to go well, we had monthly culture meetings, and we would sit in this room, and it literally at times felt like God was peeling the roof back because so many people were coming to see what was happening.
Wow.
And as that started to happen, the opportunity to talk to other companies and do similar work started. And about that time, Paul was considering an early retirement from Deloitte. So we joined forces, and that's the early stage or the seminal steps of how Summit came into being. But I'll let Paul kind of pick up on his journey at that point.
I had spent my career in consulting and actually was a partner at KPMG, and eventually through some transition, we were acquired by Deloitte. And, so I was a fairly senior partner at Deloitte. And I was doing what I had always dreamt of doing, which is really coming alongside business leaders and business owners and helping them take their businesses to the next level on grand scale, literally flying around the world. And I felt like this was exactly what God had called me to do. It was an answer to prayer, frankly, that I had gotten the role that I had and thoroughly enjoyed it. But I went through a process, a prayerful process about kind of where I felt like God wanted me in life. And at the conclusion, I felt like I was supposed to put that down and start alongside Brian this thing called SummitTrek, which we basically took over. We were actually clients of SummitTrek. And the guy who founded it actually moved on, and if we hadn't stepped in, it would have gone away. And I felt very led. So I had a 1.5 year long debate with God about this was the pinnacle of the consulting career. I loved what I was doing. I had wonderful clients. I had a great team, and I was not unhappy. I was very happy, but I felt called to something different and larger, and I really felt. As I was trying to really abide in that, I felt like God was calling me, and so I had to say yes. But I didn't say yes right away. It took about 1.5 years. But I'm glad, again, God used all that time to bring a lot of clarity, and I was able to be much more direct in my role because I felt like I had nothing to lose. So my fellow Deloitte partners really appreciated the fact that I would say things that maybe they wouldn't say. So even that period was beautiful, but it was a challenging time to step away from that career to do something different, very much like what Brian experienced.
Could you have imagined like this was what God was going to be doing. Talk us through that. How like, did you have this big dream of we're going to come to South Africa, our obedience is going to unlock these doors, God's going to do an amazing thing, or what were you thinking?
Before our first seminar, which we did in Johannesburg and then went to Durban and then went to Cape Town, I pulled Paul aside and I said, Paul, God told us to come and we came, and that's all we know. Don't commit to anything else. Don't propose anything else. Don't offer anything else. What God said was come and we came, and that's all we know. And ironically, that question came up in all three places. And part of the reason I think you're sitting here and Kyle is sitting here is because when we were asked the question, we didn't roll out the business plan. We didn't tell you we're bait and switching you, and this is the thing we're offering for free, and now here's the real thing we're trying to sell. In obedience we came, and in obedience we said we have no idea what's next.
So there's this whole process of abiding and really asking God for the next right step. And we were on that journey together at that time, but this was the perfect opportunity to see God at work. And so I was grateful that he reminded me of that, and we were faithful to that idea of not committing anything long term, but just prayerfully, what's the next right step, Lord, and we'll do that, and we'll commit to that.
So I want to touch on something you said there, and something we've often spoken around is in the kingdom, everyone gives and everyone receives, and you are seeing the fruits through Business Forum of seeds that God used you to sow, which we often say no man can take credit for what God is doing here, but in your SummitTrek business, where you live out your vocation, how has SummitTrek changed based off of that first trip to South Africa?
We received pictures in the mail from you and others of our business content on a screen in a country that sometimes we don't know the location of. So the encouragement of seeing what we toiled in obscurity on for many years being lived out so abundantly beyond us has completely changed our perspective on what we do and why we do it. We had a thing annually, we have an annual retreat, and we ask for advance words. God, what would you have us to know about the coming year? And often it's the questions we have are, how do we pivot our business model? If we're going to continue to give thousands of hours to this, and we're going to continue to spend the energy and resources to go back and forth and bring you back and forth, it's going to affect our profit and loss statement in our balance sheet.
Which is real.
That's real money, real dollars. And so our question has been the last 3 years, what would you have us to know about this coming year, and how are we supposed to allocate our time? And we received a similar answer over 3 years. You'll have everything you need to do everything I have for you to do. And that has borne out to be incredibly true.
Wow.
It's been amazing to me on this journey. We've discovered, and it started with the relationship between Brian and I, that the way forward to really live out this kingdom worldview is it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. And in this journey, again, it started with, we met you and we met many other people, but there were certain people that God just brought out of that said, these are some of the crucial relationships that you need to foster, to develop, to invest in, to care about. And I would say, looking back on the last 5 years, again, starting with you and then with Kyle, and then later with people like Paul Mon and with Sheldon Delhart and their spouses as well. We've just developed a series of relationships that have really been the engine that has driven everything that we've done in terms of clarity, in terms of walking together, in terms of praying together, and just asking God's direction. It has changed the course and direction of everything we've done. So in identifying and actually being receptive to God's pointing out the right people, investing in the relationship with those people, and allowing that to be the engine that drives everything has been really the key observation, the key lesson that I've learned through this process.
I would encourage people just to look deeply into the narrative they've lived, the redemptive experience of having lived in that story, and ask God to appropriate their gifting and ability and the portion of their heart that's broken for what God's heart's broken for, and not scheme or plan to do some great grand thing, but just ask God simply what the next step is. Because kind of like this journey, we had no idea what the second step was, and certainly not where the steps have led. But we were really clear out of our gifting and ability and experience that we had something to offer in one simple next step. And then just hung on for dear life with what God does with that afterwards.
Just watching God use you and so many other people to take these little seeds and just, plant them and spread them in directions that we never could have imagined is so inspiring. It strengthened my faith and brings such joy just to be part of it.
Thank you so much. Just want to honor you for being with us and looking forward to how God continues to use the seeds that have been sown. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.